it's not necessarily the content being delivered, but it's how I deliver it and how the course is structured. So we got to go through all the formalities that you guys are used to. So what I'm going to start with here is a couple of things. First is the student sign-in. Just pass that around, sign in for me. And then here's the student manual. The student manual is going to be the same thing that's up here, but it's also got two handouts for the requirements for the class. One of them is a parts of a rope worksheet where you can just fill in the parts of the rope as we go along. The other one is just a guide on different kinds of knots that are out there. So you're probably wondering what we're going to be training on today. For this training session, for my instructor 1 or instructor 2 practicals, is going to be low angle. And the reason we're doing it first, so there's 2 sessions that we're going to be doing. This one today is going to be pretty much all classroom. It's very basic awareness level training for rope rescue, rope knots, and specifically for how we do it in Ozark. How we train on it, and it's going to be the equipment that we have. We're actually going to use our equipment. So that's good. The other training is 2 to 4 hours long. It's a high hazard training. We're all going to come together for that, and that portion is going to satisfy some of the rookie books that we have to get signed off as well. So this is a dual purpose training. Okay? So it's going to be low angle rope stuff. This is not going to be a certification class. This is an in-house rope equipment familiarization class, and we're going to do a little bit of Z-rig work. Okay, so we have 2 sessions. This one's first. We're doing it today. This is the foundation. Next session is going to be all hands-on. We're going to do it in the woods beside Station 1, and that's going to be the high hazard hands-on training. Today's going to be all up here in the classroom. We'll bring the equipment up, and we'll go over it up here. And I don't know, some of the new guys, I don't know how much hands-on training you have with this stuff, but that's, like I said, it's dual function. That's why we're doing it. It gets me what I need for instructor 2 and what you guys need for your books. So we're going to go for 4 hours today. It's 4 hours straight. So what I've done is broke it up into 4 blocks. And we're going to take a break in between each block. So don't think you're going to have to sit the whole time. And I know you guys were out last night, so you're going to be tired. Just bear with me, okay? We'll get through it. There's going to be extra handouts. Just leave them to the side. Everybody's getting signed in, so we'll go ahead and get started. Does anybody have any questions so far? Normally I would go through the motions of, I'm instructor Brad, this is my experience, a little bit about me. I would explain the facilities and where everything is. However, we're all employees here, so we all already know that stuff, so I'm going to skip it. Unless you guys want me to talk about myself. No? Great. All right, so let's get started. So up here I've got the student guide. It's the same thing you have in your hands. Don't worry about the highlighted portions. This is my copy that I'm going to be turning in to state. So I've got highlighted stuff that's following the directions of what's in there. Okay. So we're going to be doing low angle operations. Like I said, it's level beginner, very awareness, very basic. So here's our objectives. Number 1, given the provided OFPD rope rescue equipment, the student shall identify each rope rescue equipment item and successfully tie prescribed rope knots. Each objective has a behavior, condition, and standard. This is just like any other state class you guys go through, okay? Student shall identify rope rescue equipment applications in accordance with OFPD policies and procedures. Student will demonstrate how to build a correct 3-to-1 hauling system given the provided OFPD rope rescue equipment. Student will demonstrate how to build a correct 3-to-1 hauling system and combine additional low angle rescue equipment using provided OFPD rope rescue equipment. Student will build a 3-to-1 hauling system and combine with low angle equipment appropriately for each of the given scenarios to the OFPD standards. Students will complete the written test and successfully pass with a 70% or higher. Yes, there's a quiz at the end. just so we're covering our own internal direction of how we do things, right? And then, once we get through that, we're going to do a short PowerPoint of ropes and low angle stuff. After that, we're going to do hands-on stuff. Okay, that's going to be the tying and the pulleys and all the hardware. At the end, as a group, we'll do a Z-rig build, so everybody can see that. And then at the very end, we're going to do the quiz, force evaluations. Okay? Any questions so far? Track it? Instructional materials, which we have not seen here. Instructional materials that we're going to be using today: PowerPoints, OFPD rope rescue equipment, practice rope for each student, relative OFPD policies and procedures. References used for today: policies and procedures, which we're going to go over here in a minute. The Rescue 3 International Water and Flood Rescue Manual. We're not going to get too much into water rescue stuff because some of the rope stuff still applies. The references are going to be made up front, but I've also got the book on hand in case anybody wants to get further into it. The same way with Tom Vines, the high ankle rope rescue techniques. I've also got that book here if you guys want to go over that. And again, we're going to hit it during our training. Of course, equipment manufacturer's recommendations. That's important to the rope stuff. And then NFPA 1983 Life Safety Rope Performance Standards. That's kind of the blanket standard for all this stuff that gets applied to many different parts of it. Okay, preparation for today. Super easy. Discuss with the students the importance of rope rescue tactics and techniques. The number of these types of calls for service are increasing for us and for the region. We will be used by neighboring organizations as well. So when I say we, the number of these calls are increasing. That is for Ozark. Ozark's calls are increasing. Not a lot, but they are increasing. However, we have increased the amount of equipment and capabilities that the district has. Eventually, we will be used more by the county in various parts for various reasons. Rope stuff is also easy to forget. So that's why we really need to practice on that stuff more often. And we need to do it more. So just practicing knots, basic rope stuff, how to use knots for different applications, all that sort of thing. We have to stay up on that stuff. And then we're going to have fun, right? Great. We're already having fun. Okay, the presentation methodology. We're going to use PowerPoint presentation. We're going to have hands-on rope practice. And then we're going to discuss scenarios and how we're going to apply Ozark Fire procedures to these scenarios. The application of the course. Each learning objective will have an informational presentation via PowerPoint or instructor demonstration. That presentation will be followed with a short hands-on practice session before the next learning objective begins. The last block of instructions of the course will be students performing practice skills to the OFPD standard, followed by a written test. The students must score 7% on this test. Lesson summary. Students will integrate rope rescue equipment knowledge with OFPD policies and procedures. This will be measured by performance skills and a written test. Guys, I know a lot of this is redundant, but like I said earlier, what we're doing here today is designed to meet the instructor 2 points checklist that I got to hit. So all these things, they might be redundant for this class, but if we were to build a really big class, all these things would be much more in-depth. Okay? So just bear with me. The evaluation methods, we've got student evaluations, performing testing, and a written test. Guys, performance testing is just doing the knots and identifying part of the physics. The course evaluations, I'll hand those out at the end. Each student's going to do that and then turn it back to me. The assignment, students will follow along with the instructor using learning objectives and student manual. They will The handouts, like I said, you guys have the student guide. There's the picture of the knots. We don't use all of those knots, okay? There's gonna be just a couple of main ones that we use, and there's reasons why. But that's just a guide of some of the knots that are out there. There's different ways to do everything, and I'm not gonna drill in everybody's head a specific way you have to do everything, because that's not always how we work on things. Then the other picture, just fill in the blank as we go. That's yours to keep. Some of this stuff for guys is going to be a refresher. You've gone over it a lot. Some of the stuff we're going to cover is going to be maybe brand new, first time you've ever seen it. So we've got a dynamic, diverse class. Okay. All right, so let's jump into this. So I've got policy 911 in here. That's the personal protective equipment. And we're just going to go over this. And I know PPE is kind of a boring subject, and for the most part it is. However, it's important, and especially doing rope stuff. You've got to wear the right stuff for the right job, or you're going to get yourself or somebody else hurt quickly, just like any other part of this job. Okay? So this is our actual policy out of our actual policy manual. I'm going to highlight a few things out of here. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you guys, otherwise you'll be asleep. It's the policy of the Ozark Fire Protection District to provide PPE and safeguards of the proper type, design, strength, and quality needed to reasonably eliminate, include, or mitigate a hazard. Everything we do is a hazard. Low angle stuff is also a hazard. It might be easy. Depending on what zone you're in, it may not be a hazard at all, but it's still a hazard. We're still going to be out in different kinds of weather. We might be out there at night. We got to have rain gear, warm gear, whatever we might need outside of rope and rope equipment. So don't get too tunnel visioned on the equipment portion. You're going to wear the approved appropriate for the hazard. We're going to talk more about that stuff in a minute, following our guidelines. The PPE provided shall minimally meet standards approved by the FDA. What I said earlier, it's going to be marked. You're going to maintain it. Okay. Head protection. So when we're doing low angle rescue, you can wear your fire helmet, but it's heavy. There are also rescue helmets specifically for this sort of thing. And if you get into the tech rescue world, you become a guru, kind of like Barty and some of the other guys, you might want to get your own helmet. And that's okay, as long as chain of command approves it, and it's within our policies and procedures. Members working in locations where there's a risk of head injuries from flying or falling objects or electrical shock, hammering shall wear appropriate protective helmet. Where there's risk of injury from hair entanglements, moving parts of machinery, combustibles, or toxic contaminants, members shall confine their hair to a hazard. So when we're out doing rope rescue stuff, even during training, you have to have some gloves on and a helmet. Even if we're in the woods, you could fall and hit your head, a branch can fall, people drop stuff could fall, hit you in the head. So you have to be wearing that stuff when we're out there. You're not going to need it in here today. Face and eye protection, generally speaking, your sunglasses are going to be okay for that. If you're going to be somewhere where there's a bunch of falling debris or something like that, they'll ask you to put on the clear safety glasses to be issued, but you don't have to have bottles or anything like that. Body protection. One of the big arguments with body protection is, do you wear your bunker gear on rope rescue calls or do you not wear it? Well, that's organizational specific. And for Ozark Fire, it's kind of different. If you're doing it around any potential heat sources, probably ought to wear your bunker pants. But that can also pose an additional hazard because you're bulky, your harness can get hung and stuff like that, so you may not want to wear your bunker pants. It's all relative. Hand protection and gloves. We issue smooth leather palm gloves. Those are technically for your rope stuff. protection, you want to have sturdy boots, ankle protection. Mainly, you want to be able to get in and out of the harnesses. Okay. Inspection, routine inspection, your rope rescue stuff, the wildland gear that we have, any kind of gear you have, you need to regularly inspect so you can maintain it. Just like bunker gear, a lot of times we use it, it gets dirty, we throw it in a bag, and then we come in next shift and just expect it to be right, and then we find stuff that's not right. So with rope stuff, you have to be vigilant. Manually for gloves, for helmet, and the rope equipment. For policy, for SOG, for every standard out there, inspecting rope stuff of any kind is a must. You have to do it, and it has to be equipment. Lots of stuff happens on scenes that you don't even notice. And it's all the equipment we just talked about. Helmets, footwear, eyewear, handwear. Cleaning's the same thing. You're going to follow manufacturer's recommendations on that stuff. We get into mud, we get into thorns, sticks, all manner of stuff, and you don't know it at the time until you get back and you find that stuff. So just clean it. Warm water, brush, anything you need to use, we'll have it. Okay. You get issued the stuff, you sign out the stuff, all the PPE. As we're aware of it, the storage, don't store it in the bag if it's wet. It's going to get moldy, make sure your air out's dry. Same as the firefighting gear. There's a lot of record keeping when it comes to rope stuff, specifically with the ropes and the hardware. Your PPE is on you to track and keep and maintain. And special return procedures. Great. All right, so we're through that policy. Does anybody have any questions on the policy? No? Okay. Okay. So we're going to go through two procedures. They are procedure 505 and 507. All right. Can everyone still see that okay?
Yep.
Great. So 505 is the tech rescue response procedure that OFPD has. Now we have other procedures, trench rescue, water rescue, some of the other rescues. This one's kind of the foundational one. It's going to cover most of what we're doing today. So the purpose of this procedure, this document, provides arrival and on-scene procedures for OFPD units operating at technical rescue emergencies, including but not limited to high angle, low angle, confined space machinery, wilderness, trench rescue, water, or building collapse rescues. Supplemental procedures focusing on specific technical rescue operations can be used in tandem with this procedure. So when we're doing low angle rescue training or we're on call, there could be other procedures applying to that same situation, okay? And these are some of them here that we could also use it to. So the first arriving unit, let's say we get called to a guy, this happened a couple of years ago, down in Station 3 area, south of town. He was up in his tree stand, he fell out, broke his hip. He couldn't crawl out, he was stuck there, didn't have his phone, so he was stuck, okay? So just think of, there's all kinds of different scenarios. Let me back up. What's the difference between low angle and high angle rescues? Chris? There's a very definitive line between the two.
I mean, it's just the way your rope's set up. I mean, a high angle would be working maybe up a hill or using your rope.
Kind of, but that's not the line now.
Steeper.
No? What?
Angle, it's not gonna be as like a, triangle would be for like a cliff or something, right? Like
Maybe.
something that degree.
So
Like
here's
a ditch or
here's
something.
how we treat low angle versus high angle. snelling, if they're hanging off the edge of a water tower, anything like that's gonna be a high angle. Anything that's on an angle or a slope where the rope and the ground are sharing the load, that's low angle. Okay. Be thinking that as we go through this, because there's a very clear difference between the two, and we, as those who are required, do not do anything high angle. There's not a single person or team here that can do a high angle rescue on the scene right now. We do all low angle stuff. So if it's high angle, we have to call additional resources. Okay, so let's say that scene, this guy falls in the woods. We're still gonna treat that scene as a fire scene or a wreck. So when you go on scene, the first unit still has to identify you're on scene. They have to do a size up. They have to do the location of a level 1 staging area. Considerations should include keeping responses in a safe spot away from trenches, caves, collapses, cliffs, mud holes, whatever the case might be. Away from vehicles also. You're going to establish incident command and then request additional units as needed. So that's important to remember. When you get on the scene of a rescue, whoever's there, we still have to set up command, we still have to do a size up. Incoming units need to know what they're expecting. Okay? If you're the IC, you're going to do a 360 and then report the results. The nature of the incident, the victim location, obvious scene hazards, and appropriate places to park. When we go to these rescue scenes, they're not going to be in the middle of a street where there's plenty of places to park. They're going to be in the woods. They're going to be down in Busick on a trail. They're going to be out in Chadwick on a bluff side, So not everybody's going to be able to park there. It's hard to park and then find the victim if nobody's there to tell you where they're at. They could be just laying in the woods with their cell phone saying, I don't know where I am. I think I'm half mile back from the red barn at the end of the road. Okay, well, you gotta find them, and that's hard, especially when they're screaming and, my leg's broke, I'm bleeding, please help, we still have to set the scene up as we would any other scene. Okay. Try not to get tunnel vision on everything. Provide updates to dispatch, request additional resources, advise people where to park, and where to approach the scene from, and tell them what equipment you're going to need. Every rescue response needs to have a designated safety officer. We would prefer that that's not also the IC. These things can get complicated really fast. You can have more people get injured while you're on scene. The IC's got to worry about that stuff. The safety officer is checking the equipment, checking people that are coming and going, making sure the scene isn't changing. Because if it's raining and you're on a bluff side, you could be washing out, it could be trees falling, it could be flooding. There's a lot of things to consider. So we need a designated safety officer. And we'll talk about that when we start setting up security stuff. If you're going to be out there for a certain work period of time, they might set up an incident action plan. Newer guys, do you know what that is? It's just that work, it's that operational period plan, whether it's 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever. Benchmarks that you need to hit, rest periods, order food, check-ins, things like that. And then if something else happens, we've got caves around here. If you have to go to a cave, you might have to order additional specialized resources or something like that. Okay? All right, the apparatus, like a safe place, not next to the scene. If you're going to be anywhere near a cave, why would you not want the trucks near?
Exhaust.
Thank you, Austin. Exhaust fumes, right? You don't want to fill the cave where the rescue is with exhaust from the trucks. Park them away, downwind, whatever you got to do, so that you're not creating more hazard at the scene where you're at. They also Same way with trenches. They typically won't collect a whole lot of gas. There'll be plenty of oxygen down there. However, if that trench collapses, now you're looking at other problems. Avoid tunnel vision on any rescue everybody's head has to be on a swivel. You have to be paying attention to your surroundings because things can change very quickly. So, like I said, setting up the scene like you normally, whether it's a size up, you're just going to identify what you got. One patient, two patients, whether ambulatory or not. Do you need additional medical equipment? Do you need a helicopter? Is it dark? Do you need lighting? Do you need more rope equipment? Do you need more people? When you're talking about rescue scenarios, rope, water, anything, whose safety is number one? So, yourself, right? And there's an order of operations for safety. Yourself, your safety is first, then your team, then the patient. If you or your team gets stuck in this precarious situation, now more teams have to come to get you guys out. And it's not like a house fire where, we train all the time where we can just drag you out, help you in the yard. If you're down 150 feet down the slope with all this stuff, and you break your leg or get disoriented or whatever happens, we can't just go down there and drag you out. We have to set up multiple systems for multiple teams to be on there, to be able to get down there to you. Meanwhile, the patient is still farther down, having whatever issue they're having. So you got to pay attention to what's going on. Risk a lot to save a lot. And sometimes the most the direct route to the patient isn't always the best route. If you have to go over a bunch of rocks, a creek, something like that, step back, get a broader view of what's going on. It might be better to go around the side where you can get to it from the other side. Air monitoring, we've got our 4-gas monitors. If we're going to be in a cave, trench, mine, anything like that, we're also going to be carrying our 4-gas with us. It's going to tell us how much oxygen is in there, if the oxygen level is changing while we're there, and if there's CO or something else in there too. Okay, resource deployment. And then all of our procedures, most of our procedures have this decision tree at the end. And you just work through it. I'm not going to explain this whole thing, but basically pretend like you are the first unit on scene, and then you just work through it with the arrows and ask questions. Is it yes or no? And then you just follow the arrows, and that will guide you on how to make decisions if you are the first unit. Now you're not going to have this pulled up right in front of you when you can see, right? So what you would be doing, training on our procedures, which is what we're doing now. Now when you know it's there, if you're thinking in your head right now, yeah, maybe I should look at that. Because I don't know what I would do in this situation. After this training, come back and look at it. Okay. Any questions on procedure 505? Okay. Procedure 507, I'm not going to go over this entire thing. It's fairly similar to what we just went over. However, we do have a water rescue team. This is what they operate off of, and some of the rope stuff applies. So again, we have corresponding policies, incident management, with water rescue, post-incident analysis, so on and so forth. We have nobody in here is water rescue related. Austin White, but he's all
Moreland.
Moreland, yeah.
And Kyle, which is like.
He's not here right now, yeah. Okay. All right. So the cold zone and hot zone. Let's talk about that real quick. Because it's up there. Cold zone and hot zone, we're still going to set these up on rope rescue incidents. And what typically happens when we have a rescue incident, you're going to get law enforcement, you're going to get chiefs, you're going to get EMS, you're going to get bystanders, property owners, friends of the victim. You're going to get all these people. They're going to line up, what's going on, what's going on? they're gonna wanna crowd the operation that's at hand. We have to set them back. Okay, so the hot zone, as identified here, is the water's edge or at the water's edge or discretion of the IC. Same way with rope rescue. Once we start setting up hardware and we find an anchor point, we start setting up for operations, that's the hot zone. None of those people I just listed need to be in that except for the teams that are operating and the safety. Okay? Now, when we bring in EMS and we send them down the line or whatever we're gonna do, yeah, they can go in the hot zone. They have to have PPE. They are in charge of the scene. So if some officers wanna show up and say, "Hey, I'm allowed to be up here, I have to know what's going on." No. You can know what's going on from the cold zone, which is behind us. Same way as water rescue. The hot zone, as we define it, is within 10 feet of the water's edge, and in the water is hot. Anything outside of that's cold, that's where everybody can hang out, but if you're in the hot zone, you have to have PPE, you have to be assigned something. Okay? Brents, what's the difference between a rescue and a recovery?
Rescue, mostly going after a patient that's probably alive. Recovery would be basically dead, and you're just, it's not like a whatever it takes situation. It's gonna take your time and just.
Right, we can take our time, we can slow down the pace. When we show up on scene and somebody says, "Oh yeah, they've passed away, this is a recovery," do we assume that? A medical professional or one of us needs to identify that person as deceased or not. We can get in a really sticky situations where we just assume, because we may not be able to see the patient. They could be 200, 300, 500 feet in the woods. Just because we can't hear them, just because their arm is folded back, and they're in a bad spot, doesn't mean they're deceased. We can't assume that until we verify it. Once we verify it, we can slow the pace down. The IC is gonna say, "Everybody, take a breath, take a step back. This is now a recovery operation." They're gonna declare it on the radio, and then we're gonna move forward with recovery. Okay? Just don't assume it's a recovery. Warm zone, and then the first driving, same thing, operation level response, technician levels. So with Ozark, we have a whole variety of trained people to different certification levels, anywhere from no rope stuff all the way up to tech level 3 certification stuff. The state just changed how they do rope rescue certification again. I think it's intermediate. There's 3. It's not rope 1 and 2 or 3 anymore. It's awareness, ops, and tech. They just changed it, but anyway, those are classes you guys can take if you want, if you really want to get into this stuff. Whenever, you won't use it a lot, but when you get on a scene, you're going to be the guy that's in the harness. You're going to be the guy calling the shots and doing everything. It's fun. I like it. I enjoy it. But you're only going to be able to do stuff that you're trained to do. Okay? And with that being said, if you arrive on a scene today and then the IC says, "Dilday, I want you to tie this knot to this anchor, set it up now." If you don't have confidence in doing that, that's okay. Just tell him, "I'm not trained to do that. I'm not the guy for this." Okay? It's better to do that then than try to tie something and fake it and hope it works. Do not do that. Okay? We will train on it later. We will talk about it later. You're not going to be in trouble. Just tell them, "I'm not certified. I'm not trained in this. I'm not comfortable." He knows, the IC knows on his crew who is trained certain levels of rope stuff to a degree. He knows who he's going to put in the harness, who he's going to put on the end, and all that. But if you get on a water rescue, anything, if you're not comfortable with doing some of this stuff, say it at the time. And there's other jobs you can do. Just don't try to rig anything or do anything and hope for the best. Just please don't do that. Okay? That's gonna be a bad thing. Okay, rescue priorities. Same as we just talked about. Self, team, victim. Okay, these are different communication can make with victims in the water. So we're going to try to risk as little as possible at first to get the victim out of whatever situation they're in. So if they are able to get themselves out, they just need some coaching, we're going to try that first. We don't have to set up rope stuff to get all the way down to them if we don't have to. You know, we're going to try to get them first because it takes time to set all that up. If they can crawl a little bit, they can grab something and pull themselves up. If we can just throw a rope to them and they can pull themselves out, that's going to save us 10 plus minutes of setting everything up. Meanwhile, they're already out. Okay. Then we're gonna try to talk to them first and establish communication with them. Well, if it's dark and you can't see them, but you can hear them, what are some other ways to communicate with them?
You can hear 'em.
You can yell so they can hear you verbally, right? If they're shining a light at you, maybe you can shine a light back at them. You can use lights to communicate. It's kind of hard at night to communicate a lot. You need to have a light with you, and you need to have a radio. Yeah. Yeah, especially if they're not talking. You gotta find them, but you can't really see well or something. Yeah, tick works well. Also, the tick, I don't know if you guys have played with this yet, some of the newer guys, but you can see footprints on the ground for a little while after they're made. You can practice this anytime you guys want. Go out in the woods, walk around, whatever. Put your hand on the wall, and then shine the tick over it. You can actually see footprints and stuff. And we've helped law enforcement track people before they had ticks through the woods that ran. So there's different things to use, but have a light and then have a radio with you. Especially if you're the guy at the end with the victim, have a radio because we may not be able to see you and you may be out of voice contact. Okay? Just be thinking different ways. You can use a whistle, whatever you need to use. But the team up top has to be in communication with the team down bottom somehow. Another method you can do, let's say you guys are 600 feet apart. No, let's say 300 feet apart. You put a person in the middle. Then these people can yell to this person, then this person can yell to them, and then back and forth. That's verbal communication, and it's just down the chain. Just make sure it's clear. They'll set up attack channels like we always do, hand signals, glow sticks, lights, searches, rescues, recoveries, and accountability. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about the water rescue procedure? Kind of similar, kind of not. But the rope guys do a lot of water stuff, with rope stuff, tech stuff. It's all kind of connected. If you guys aren't familiar with these procedures and the stuff that applies, if you even think on a scene that you might or want to be involved with it, you need to know this. Because if you say, I want to be involved and I want to be there, the IC is going to assume that you have read these and you know what you're doing. You better know what you're doing. So when you're tying people on the end of the rope, and that's their safety line or their lifeline, better be confident in what you're doing. All right, so that wraps up block 1. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and then we'll start the slideshow.
Do you want this sauce or keep it?
No, just leave it on. Thank you.
But I mean, I can. Well, I have no issue doing it. Yeah, like I said, I've done it 1 month. Wasn't asked to begin. Where's that sign up sheet for this? Is that it?
Oh, you want to get it? I'm sorry. Sorry. We can pass it back.
sleepy. Actually, pretty much sleepy. Almost.
Yeah. That's what I did to mine today. Did you start? Whoever's done, just tell them we're starting. Thank you. I'll wake up. Oh, I saw a lot of Sean down there. It might be in here. Guys ready?
I wanna say,
Are you guys in the same class?
well,
Whoa.
I started
Oh,
later
that's right,
than,
yeah, easier.
Yes and no.
so like,
Not that far behind, but.
you guys started in July, I started in September.
Let's check to see the last one.
I like that.
After play, 60 seconds. I like that whole thing.
I knew that's where it was going.
Junior, man.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get back to it.
So each one's about like three.
So how's block one? Is it okay? Kind of boring, I know.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it was a pretty good delivery.
Jerry wants to get the house out of Browning,
That's just, it's permanent, it doesn't matter. All right. This is block two. So we wrapped up, policy procedure stuff. We're gonna go into this PowerPoint that I found, and, clearly it's not Ozark Fire's PowerPoint, right? We don't have a specific PowerPoint training for low angle rescue. So what I did is I went online, I scoured through some, and I found this one. We're gonna steal it, just borrow it, I guess. It's very close to what we teach and how we operate, is why I'm using it, okay? So bear with me on it. Yes, it's on Ozark Fire, but it's on the internet, so it's public information, it can be used, and, we're gonna use it. This is more about rope rescue stuff, okay? Some of it's gonna be just boring refresher stuff, and then some of it's gonna be operational based. So the references that are used, ASTM, the ASTM group, they do a lot of technical testing of certain equipment, and then they set standards and testing standards for equipment like rope and hardware and stuff like that, okay? And a bunch of other things as well, but that's how it applies here. Okay, these are the objectives of the PowerPoint. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna cover knowledge of rope types and strengths, tying basic knots, knowledge of rope software and hardware, knowledge of use of anchoring points, constructing mechanical advantage systems. That's the Z-rig that we commonly use. It's a 3-to-1 hauling system. It's different names for it. It's a mechanical advantage system used for hauling equipment. Then basket operations. We're gonna cover basket operations But next training session where we're out in the woods, we will use a basket for victim removal. Okay? Some more references there. Here again is the NFPA 1983. Life safety rope system components. Guys, that's for all this stuff, okay? Rope, hardware, life safety is that's their thing. That's the gold standard. That's what everybody goes by. They're using the Rescue Technician Instructor Guide. Some of the stuff I'm going to reference is here, but it's also in the books that I have provided. Fire rescue. Fire service rescue, NFPA 1670, operations and training. NFPA 1006 is the standard for rescue tech professional qualifications. That's a big one. That's what all of the tech rescue certifications will be based on, among others. But that's one of them that outlines what you have to do and complete to become a tech, a rope rescue tech, certified tech. Okay? And then the last one. All right. Again, some of this is refreshers, some of it isn't. So there's ropes. We use ropes. There was a time, I want to throw this out there, it's not in the PowerPoint. There was a time when you could just look at a rope and say whether it was life safety or not. It's got to be a certain diameter, of course, but if it had two colors, it was guaranteed to be a life safety rope if it was being used in the fire service. If it had one solid color or three or more colors, it was utility rope. That's not the case anymore. Okay? Life safety rope can have three colors now. So don't. If anybody says, "Oh, well, it's only two colors, it's life safety rope," don't go by that. That's old. Don't assume that.